Here we are, and we are live tonight with Lisa Bundy. And Lisa Bundy she is Car Girl Capital. Now, for those that are new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for automotive dealers throughout the USA. And sometimes you guys can find me in Canada. And I got to tell you, we are going live, broadcasted live, YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe and share, as well as in my F&I Today group with Becky Chernek. I've got some guys listening in there. And if you're new to F&I Today group or you haven't joined, please join. And we're also live on LinkedIn. And so welcome everyone. Boy, we have a great conversation in store for you tonight. We are talking about how these lenders are changing the way that they are buying deals. And I'm telling you, if you're not in tune to what's happening and knowing how those lenders buy, it's going to mean you're likely not going to be selling as many cars. Because at the end of the day, if that customer does not fit within the parameters of those lender guidelines, you don't have a car deal. So Lisa Bundy, welcome. Thanks. If you will, please share with everyone how long you've been in the industry, your background a bit.
They don't think I'm that old.
I never tell anyone how old I am.
Thank you. I have a cold today, so I sound a little cranky. I'm not cranky normally, but no, I grew up in the car business. So I have been running car lots, running finance companies for more than 30 years. And then being a consultant for the auto and auto finance industry. And as of current, I sell pools of loans between banks, credit unions, finance companies, hedge funds, etc. And a lot of those are auto loans. So definitely on top of what's changing on their dynamics, what they're buying, what they're selling, and kind of the metrics behind that, why all this is taking place.
Well, one of the things too that I failed to mention is that I do provide the very best, what I think is in finance and insurance training, but it's not all about in the F&I office. I mean, I work with the desk, and how important is that? Because many of these desk guys, I mean, they're responsible to submit and work those deals prior to that deal making its way into that F&I office. So if we don't have a better understanding how lenders buy these deals, frankly, it's going to be a battle to put deals together to maximize those profits. So first and foremost, are lenders changing? I mean, what's happening with lenders today? I understand the economy is tightening up more so than ever before. So how is that affecting how lenders are buying these deals?
Well, there's actually a couple things that are kind of converging at the same time, which is, so you'll see, we'll use the word perfect storm. I hate the word, but it kind of fits. First of all, when we were during COVID, banks had more liquidity, cash that they had in a very long time. So they were making loans and interest. They could borrow money, not that they needed to, at low rates. So they needed to make loans. I mean, banks make money, they're charging you fees or making loans. Okay. So they were making loans. And then when we started to tighten up the economy and when we started to go up on the interest rate, when the Fed started to go up, you saw a lot of people, obviously we heard about the inflation numbers. People they weren't getting paid more, but they were needing more of their money to be able to daily survive. So they're pulling their money out of savings. And you see the highest credit card use that we've had, the highest credit card balances, I think, ever. It's huge. For that reason, banks' liquidity has gone down. Well, when the liquidity goes down, then banks start to go, well, if I only have so much money to lend, I'm going to be very picky about it. I'm going to be and if my money costs me a lot more, I'm going to need to charge more for it. So therefore, you see interest rates go up on the loans, and you also see a tightening or a constricting of the type of credit, because again, we only want the very best. Okay. If you only got $1 to buy a banana, you're not going to buy the bruised one, right? You're going to buy the good banana.
Right. Right. So when we talk about this, we had lenders before. I mean, over the past 2 years, I mean, their loan to value was at 150, 175%. It was amazing. Some even higher than that. And then terms of 84 months, no big deal. We had 96 months, no big deal. We could do it. We could put deals together. They'd stretch for us. They'd work with us to go ahead and put these deals together. Then, of course, maybe terms are not as available as they used to be. Of course, loan to value is down. Where's loan to value today?
Well, definitely your banks are wanting to stay in that 120, 125 range, and actually some even lower than that. And the reason they were giving those extended LTVs and terms because it was so competitive out in the marketplace. That, and as you and I both know, cars were short. So, the price of cars went up. So obviously when you do that, you've either got to extend the term, raise LTVs, or you have to enlarge the box, so to speak. So that's the reason why they're not doing that anymore, is because now cars are coming down in value, and the competition is not so stiff out there. I've talked to, last year I did about 140 million $140 million in auto loans. This year, probably half of that. And that's not because my producer basically just said, if I can't sell it, I can't produce it. And that's the thing with banks, is if they can't, even your larger finance companies, they either securitize these loans. And if you look at the securitizations, those now cost more. So most of those finance companies have not put enough money in reserve to offset that. Banks are also now being asked to enlarge what they call CECL, which is current expected credit losses. And it's a requirement for all banks to figure out what the loss of a loan will be over the lifetime of that loan. And because of a current economy we're going into, they think that's going to go up. And those large LTV numbers is going to cause a higher loss. So they're having to bring more of their money out of profit or out of loanable into reserves. So there's less money. Again, it's just all this is compounding, building up.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm talking what's really happening in the industry. I don't want to blow things up out of proportion that, to use it as a scare tactic to get people to join my live talks, right? I'm not all about that. I'm all about what's really happening in the industry, what's really taking place now. And so lenders are tightening up, and they're not providing these larger loan to values. They're not extending the terms. So now we have not only an affordability crisis going on here in the United States, but again, debt to income is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Dealers need to wrap their head around it. We used to get around that. But unless that customer's coming up with additional down payment, how do you get around debt to income if you've got a customer on the wrong car? How does that happen?
I was going to say, you and I both know the elements of a finance deal basically are, the sales price, the money down, the term, and then of course the credit score determines the interest rate. So, I mean, there's only a few. You can't change the interest rate because the market determines that. You can't change the term because right now the market is determining that. So your other two things are the down payment, which the consumer determines, and then the sales price, which the dealership determines. So you got to figure out which one of those lines in that box, which wall in the box you can change.
Okay. So it is fair to say that, hey, I know dealers are resilient. I get it. They are. I'm resilient. I've been in the car business all my life, right? That's all we know. You too, Lisa. Right. We're resilient. We get it. But at the end of the day, we have got to work smarter and not harder. I mean, Absolutely. That's one of the things that I preach all the time when I'm in the store. Look, we need to work smarter and not harder. And by that, we need to make sure, do we have the right inventory to begin with? I mean, is the inventory correct? Does it meet today's standards? And things change all the time. And I know these dealers are going through a lot with this inventory, especially pre-owned inventory. I have watched it for the past year, and I've watched Jason Rice, who I think is one of the best in the industry. And if you don't know who Jason Rice is, you guys need to look him up. He knows his stuff, right? Pops. What did I say that? Anyway, so he knows his stuff. The thing is, if you don't have that right freaking inventory, you're dead. You're dead before you get started.
Well,
especially what's happening today.
It goes even further than that. I mean, first of all, do you know what your banks buy? Because unless you're in a cash business, and I mean, last I checked, the auto business was not a cash only business. So that means you've got to provide financing, or you've got to rely on financing to sell whatever you've got. Same thing in the mortgage industry. So what are your banks buying? And then from that, tailor first of all, those should be the parameters of your inventory. Okay. If banks won't do over 150,000 miles, don't buy those cars. If they won't buy 10-year-old cars or older than 10 years, don't buy those cars unless you're willing to finance them or you have a bank that will do that. From there are so many resources out there that will tell us in real time what is selling in our market, what the consumer wants in our market right now at that time. Why we don't use that and put that on the lot. I used to do a lot of inventory management for dealerships through Tim Deese and Progressive Basics. And that was the first thing we went to, is we would go in and assess the inventory. Just because a car, it runs, it looks good and all these, but it's not selling. I don't know why, but you are wasting your money by leaving a car on the lot that's not selling. Okay. If you've done everything right, it's just not your inventory. You need to move
things have changed rapidly, right? As far as that inventory, like before it was we got top dollar. You didn't have to sweat too much. You didn't even have to look too much. It was like, let it sit there for a while. And eventually customers going to come in, they're going to pay that.
It was shooting fish in a barrel. Okay. You didn't have to be a good shot. You just had to have a gun. Okay.
And they were taking advantage of that. So now things are a lot different than
get a rifle and get a little good at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we've been through this. You and I have both been through different market times, different economic times where, the consumer's in control, we're in control, inventory's up, inventory's down. We don't have finance sources. It's all about paying attention to your business, knowing what's going on and evaluating on a regular basis. If I were a franchise dealer or even an independent dealer, I would reevaluate my inventory no less than once a month, period.
So here's another thing. Do you know how many times I've gone into a store, and I'm not trying to beat anybody up. I swear I am not. I don't want anyone to feel like, Becky thinks she knows it all. And I don't. I mean, I really don't. I know a lot, but no, after a while. But I'll go into a store and I ask a question. What's your average FICO score?
They don't know.
Amen. I'm like,
oh my God. I've asked that
Becky,
question so many times.
It's 725. Do you know how many times I hear 725 until I can't take it anymore? I'm like, 725? Now, 725 makes sense. Let me just show you something here real quick. Now, this is used cars. But if you look at the green, you can see where this 7%, 8% is versus other states where it's 10, 11, and even 12%, good old Georgia, Tennessee, etc. Alabama. Okay, right. Sorry, I can't see Alabama there. So, so knowing your region, but don't tell me the average in your store is 7. What do you base that on? Well, it's my perception. It's how I feel. It's how
sometimes it's based on the fact those are the deals I'm getting done. Okay. But is that the average? I used to ask this question.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Credit score of the consumer walking on your lot. And they'd go, I don't know. And I'm like, but you need to know, because your advertising, your marketing efforts are creating that traffic. And you need to know what that is so that you can make a change in it if you don't like it. So if you're getting 520s, but they never buy a car, you're only selling 720s, but you're only selling 20% of the people that come on the lot. Yeah, your average credit score is going to be 720 of what you sell. But what are you doing with the other 80%? Why aren't they buying a car?
So that's exactly right. So I dig deep just like you, and I
Mhm.
will look at it and go, let's just take a look at what you're submitting.
Right.
Let's take a look at that. And then from there, what are you selling? You're right. And so if you had to put a guess on that, if you had to put a number on that, what number would that be? And it's always 720. And I'm like, well, you're right. Because if in the event you work that business harder, how many deals could you potentially be costing yourself per month? I wrote an article blog here on LinkedIn. Well, I say here, I'm being broadcast everywhere, but on LinkedIn. And it was about grooming customers. And I'll never forget, I'm at a dealership working with a really fantastic dealer. I absolutely love this, absolutely adore this dealer. And so he told me that he just acquired this new dealership, and he says, Beck, don't expect too much from this store. We're predominantly prime, predominantly cash. And most of our customers here have a high FICO score, 700, 750, and above. I don't know, something crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. So I go to the store, I go take care of some stuff, I come back and I'm like, there's no way in hell. Something's not right. There's no way in hell that you only have tier 1 and tier 2 business. Something doesn't sound right. It's not real.
Right.
Well, come to find out, as he does his due diligence, he's like, Becky, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to spiff $40 for every write-up. Every write-up, you just bring me a write-up, and I'm going to give you $40 for it.
Yep.
What do you suppose he found out?
Ooh, he found out a lot of low credit scores.
Immediately.
Yeah.
It didn't take much. Said, Bill, I
It's
told you so.
$40 times.
$40 cost, but from that point, it made him so much more because we immediately realized salespeople were grooming customers.
Mhm.
It was part of the culture. They were like, I'm not going to invest amount of time into this customer if I know that they have slow pay history, only to get beat up at the desk, only
Right.
to be told, can't you get yourself a real customer? How many times has that happened with that salesperson who has landed the customer on maybe the wrong car, or customer has derogatory credit? They go into the store, they go back to the desk, and the desk manager goes, man, oh man, can't you get yourself a real customer?
I was going to say, did the salesman pick them out of a lineup? No, it was his up.
See, and that's the thing. So they're grooming those customers. So you don't know what you don't know. So if
Right.
you're looking at that report and you're going, well, okay, we have this average. Okay, we sell this average, but we submit this, or we pull this. We may not even submit this, right? We
Right.
may pull
Exactly.
this and not submit it. So that's something else to look at. But at the end of the day, dealers are costing themselves left and right because they're allowing that salesperson to broom this customer.
Make
If
the
it makes
decision.
it difficult for me to go ahead and put a deal together, why mess with it? I'll go get myself a real customer that can buy.
Right. Exactly. Plus, if you're
Over
going
the
to,
past 2 years, has it not been that way?
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the last 2 years, like I said,
It's an
we
anomaly.
have to work hard.
It's an anomaly. It was a great time while it lasted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So, hope you saved up.
And okay, so here's my other question. Pre-qualify then. Should dealers allow salespeople to pre-qualify? I mean, to determine earlier on if the customer can buy and what their creditworthiness is.
First of all, a well-trained salesperson will know how to qualify a customer. Whether you hand them a piece of paper or an iPad or whatever, they'll know. Now, that's probably 10 to 20% of salespeople out there. Would you agree?
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, you really need to know your salesperson is the person who's deciding whether or not that person goes to pass the gate through from point A to point B, right? So if they make the wrong decision on that consumer, you never get a chance. F&I doesn't get a chance. The desk doesn't get a chance. Nobody gets a chance on them. Okay. So pre-qualifying does take away, well, first of all, it makes the salesman's job easier because then he knows how to direct that customer, but he also needs to make sure that he is asking the right questions of that customer, which again, you can't do without good training. I just don't see that enough. I don't know why that is not. I'm sorry, I'm preaching. Never mind. Yes, we qualify for sure.
Sometimes we have a tendency to do that. Sometimes we can't help ourselves. I get it. You got the training bug in you, and so that certainly can happen. But okay. So I can imagine there are some dealers out here, managers even, that absolutely freaking cringe on the fact that you're giving salespeople the ability to be able to determine credit criteria earlier on in advance. Again, worried that they're going to make their own decision as to whether a customer can buy a car or not. Give away. They think the more information you give salespeople, hey guys, the more that they'll give up the farm. You know that that's happening. You know that that conversation has to be taking place. The reason why I say that, think about CarMax right now. CarMax offers, they have now an app. When a customer comes on the lot, salesperson has that ability to determine what the customer can actually qualify for. And it's like,
and they do it by themselves without having to interact with the salesperson.
They do it with the salesperson and customer. Now, AutoNation's a bit different. AutoNation, AutoNation has a text number. You text them, and they'll do a solve poll and give you some sort of an amount that what you qualify for. They'll do some sort of a pre-qualify. Okay. Whereas CarMax, I'm thinking that they also offer not only that, but payment terms that would be made available to that customer, which for some of the stores, and I can imagine some F&I people, like, are you kidding me? Some of them are freaking out. You can't give this salesperson this information, let alone the customer. How does that work?
Excuse me. You've got to, years ago, we used to do it with driver's license. I don't know if you remember that system where we would run it and scan it, and you could do a soft pull, and you knew pretty much if they had a car and what their credit score was. You didn't know their income or anything else, but at least it helped you kind of tailor the sales experience, at least to get them on the right car, because you and I both know when they end up on the wrong car and they fall in love with it and they can't afford it, nothing happens. Nothing good happens. They go away sad. We go away sad. If you want, the bottom line is you're the advocate for the customer, for the consumer. You need to do the best job on finding the car that fits their financial situation, whatever that is. And if that can be streamlined on pre-qual, again, train your salespeople what to do with the knowledge.
Train your salespeople on what we can do with the knowledge is really. So I had another conversation today, and I'm not going to get into who I had it with and why, but I think it's valuable that we're having training with finance. I get it. I understand the reasons why we do what we do. It's right. Really having a better understanding of that sale process, the interview, understanding our product knowledge, presentation, overcoming objections, blah, blah, blah. I get that. Right. But what I don't understand is why we don't have more training up at the desk. Because that's where the deal starts. That's where it's all happening. That's this. And I think you had, man, you said something earlier today. Why aren't we getting to the finance before? What was that there was you said it in such a way. Why are we working deals backwards? Why have we always been working deals backwards? Because we've always worked deals backwards.
Well, and the same thing, of course, I did a lot of work in subprime, so it is very, very heavy on needing to know the consumer's financial situation, so that you do put them in the right cars, so that you do make it not only profitable for you, but a good experience for them and a good vehicle and good terms, I'm not just selling a car, because a subprime customer hopefully will improve their situation and come back to you and continue to buy, which, again, every consumer that we have, we should look at as a repeat customer, period. And I don't think we do that enough. But I always had dealers, when I was training dealers, I always had them work backwards in the fact that the first thing we did was find out what the banks were buying, and then find the inventory. And then once we found the inventory, figure out what consumers are the buyers of those. And then that way we knew exactly what we had. Most dealers don't do that. Used car managers, for example, a used car manager may go out and buy cars, and he may buy cars, like I said, below book. And that book may be, the car may be too old, too many miles, too whatever, but it's behind book. Or it could not be what they have, what is coming through the door. And that's where I never understood the dealerships that don't pay enough attention to every consumer that comes through the door. They need to know who's walking through their door, because
It's not every single customer 100% of the time. So here's the thing. I like the idea of being consistent. I like a consistent process. I believe in a process.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to find the errors if you have a consistent process. It's also easy to train and repeat.
Yeah. I mean, you can figure out where the holes are, right? Where, the pitfalls are, right? If you know you've got a process in place and you know that things aren't necessarily going in the right direction, you can easy enough identify, right, those weak areas. But they also, digital retailing is that's got, it's played out pretty much almost like a buzzword today, more so than anything else. But what I like about that digital retailing aspect is the customer having more information earlier on. And then from there, what that experience is from being online to what's happening in dealership, aligning the two, right? From in online to what takes place in the dealership, and how important is that to align, to do a soft poll, to determine earlier on, again, what that customer qualifies, to get some idea earlier on.
Well, one of the things, and I know you and I talked about this, we didn't want this to be, basically, we didn't want to be Debbie Downer. Okay.
No, we're not.
We are in we're in a different economic times than we have been in the last year, 2 or 3. All right. You really can't compare it to anything else. But one of the things I learned was you have to be able to adapt and shift. And as soon as you notice that things are changing, you need to change with them, but change using the information that's available to you. And with the internet and all the different things that we have available to us now, it's not like we had to go to the auction. I can redo my cars just pulling up MMR value and seeing, oh, that one fell $2,000. So, if I were to have to get rid of it, so do I get rid of it for $2,000 at the auction, or do I put a spiff on it and reduce the price by $1,000?
And then you have to look at it, okay, well, maybe this particular vehicle may have to go ahead and take a hit on the front, but I can make it up on the back. Make it up on the back. And that's, they have to look at both, right? Oh, whereas maybe in the last 2 years, they never had to really look at that so much.
They didn't. That's the whole thing. They didn't. Now's the time to pay attention to it. And the dealers that survive and do well are ones that will stay on top of it and make those changes quickly, keep their inventory fresh, but keep it real for the area that they're in, for what their consumer wants. Because there's, years ago, I started an independent lot for a franchise dealer. And I said, okay, great. Where are we going to get our customers from? And the guy just looks at me and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, look, there's only 2 ways to get customers. You either create them or you steal them from somebody else. Creating is really hard. They got to move into the area. They got to be old enough. They got to have a credit score. I'd rather steal them from somebody else. So what can I do better than the guy next to me?
I mean, that's right. What's your differentiator? Do you know what I have to hear? That's what I have to hear all the time. Becky, what's my differentiator when I go out and try to sell a dealer on my F&I training? What makes me different from the pack? And if you don't have that differentiator, what brings value?
Right.
What are
What's
people?
your unique value proposition? I went into a Chevrolet store one time and I said, okay, tell me what your unique value proposition is. And he goes, we're a Chevrolet store. I said, yeah, you and 3 other people in town. And I said, are you the oldest? Are you the cheapest? Are you what are you? You need an identity other than the brand that you're selling, because you got to give people a reason to come across town and go past the other 3.
Yeah, it's just, the other day I was watching a great video stream, I think with Liza Borges and on Carter Myers and Virginia Auto Dealers Association,
Mm-hmm.
Kyle and Paul Daly, I believe. And it was really good in that what's the message that the perception that the consumer needs to see with regard, just to the franchise dealership. What separates us from the rest of the pack
Absolutely.
every single time, right? And that's something that you have to look at. Now, that inventory, got to look at it all the time. Jason Rice is always one to say, it's got to be you. It's got to be a part of you. And one of the things too is these reports, Experian report, TransUnion report, 700 credit reports. I mean, there are reports that actually can share with the dealer what type vehicles are particularly selling.
Absolutely. In their market. Remember, V-Auto and some of the other ones would pull real-time data on what people were searching for in their market.
See, I think that is major important, because that'll give you a really good idea as to, what type of vehicle inventory you should have. It doesn't necessarily have to match your franchise, right? I mean, and that's
No.
what's so unique.
But that's the whole thing with your inventory. If you're not going to reassess your inventory, I mean, you take a car and trade, maybe a great car, but you're not in the right neighborhood to sell that car. Nobody's going to come across town. Thank God for the internet. Maybe they'll come through the internet. But if they don't, what's your inventory turn? See, our inventory turn during the time last year and a half has been less than 30 days. I mean, in some cases, we had a 15-day supply of inventory. When was the last time you ever heard about a 15-day supply of inventory? I mean, we were usually on a 60-day turn in dealerships we were in, right?
Amen. I want to, there's David Ball. Hey, David, good to see you. Glad to get your comment, right?
I don't disagree with you.
It's easy to train salespeople. The problem is the desk does not follow the process consistently. Weak desk managers. That's what I'm talking about. That's, so I'm like, we can train maybe F&I people, but if you have the wrong desk managers, if you're not training up that desk, if you got these weak guys,
think of it like a team. You got a great quarterback, but your defensive line sucks. You're still not going to win.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. They have the keys to the kingdom. That's what's happening today. We have F&I people taking deals from a desk manager who's really not even qualified, frankly, who takes this deal, submits it, does whatever that they need to do with shotgun it.
Yeah. And banks, let me tell you something. I've been with so many finance companies that just, they're done. They're done. Do you have any idea what it costs a finance company to look at an application?
Well, that's what I wondered. It's like, oh my gosh. But you have bank reps. And the reason I know this,
Yeah.
I mean, I did a presentation at NAF this summer, and the topic was, hey, lenders, relationship between the dealer and the lenders. And the idea here is that the lenders are actually coming into a dealership. Reps are coming into the dealership, advising dealers, just send me your application. They are getting compensated on the application. We don't have a book to look here. If I can tell you how many times I've heard that, we don't have a book to look, don't even worry about it. I,
Really? You don't care about cost?
they don't. Some of
Uh,
these guys just don't care. They're like, just send me the deal. I don't care about. And in fact, I went into somewhat of a heated conversation with a lender because I'm training the team, the the sales managers, desk managers. You got to know your lenders. You got to know how they buy.
right, right.
I mean, you're going to get callbacks without you're going to have to obviously submit in order to get an idea of the interest rate. I get that at times, but you
Right.
still need to know their guidelines, have a better understanding of how they buy.
Oh,
And this lender was like all over me, like how do you expect that to happen? I'd rather that they didn't know that.
well, some of them like to play that shell game. And I don't know if you remember, and I won't badmouth this particular company, but it was a major company, major prime to subprime lender, and they securitize a lot. And they never put their guidelines, they never put their underwriting guidelines on paper. And the reason being is because they would buy kind of tight. And then when it got close to where they had the bucket big enough for a securitization, they'd widen it because you can have like 20% of that pool fall outside your guidelines and you're
Okay.
okay. And so at the last minute, they're like, okay, we'll buy everything. And
That's what must happen at the end of the month.
you probably know who I'm talking about. Yes. Oh, and I mean, come on, everybody works their pay plan. So, if you ever want to know what your job description is, look at your pay plan.
Amen.
If they want to change it, if you want to change the outcome, change the pay plan.
Absolutely. So, okay. So I think it is important for me. I can tell you that if I can obtain an additional $500 down, get more money for a trade, Capital One was always good about that.
Mhm.
With their dealer navigator, you get an extra $200 on a trade, it can change up a deal altogether.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's an algorithm. I mean, it's a loan origination program and they just put the algorithm in there. And everybody has one and everybody's is different.
So this is why it's so important. If you don't know your lenders and if you don't know where you're at, you can cost yourself a lot of money. You can cost yourself a lot of profit. You can cost the customer a higher payment than what they need to be making, period,
Absolutely.
by not knowing your lenders and how they buy. So, Lisa, in closing, what do you recommend dealers do to be more proactive, if you will, in helping their team to manage the changing of how lenders are buying deals? I mean, how do you help? What would you say to those dealers?
Well, they're faced with multiple challenges right now. De- decrease, sorry, decrease in demand, which is being driven by several things. Increase in costs. You've got interest rate going up. So you need to be evaluating the banks, credit unions, and even your captive, what they're buying. You and I both know sometimes if you've got a really good captive and a good relationship with them, you'll put all your eggs in one basket, and that's great. But kind of keep your finger on the pulse and know what's going on, because sometimes even that can shift for them. It's less likely to happen on the captives than it is on some of the others. Just to give you an idea, Cap One just had a big layoff in their auto division. I had
Wow.
another subprime company today that laid off a bunch of people. Wells Fargo is laid off. They're all laying off because they know their volume is going down. Well, you need to know that because that's going to show up in your guidelines, in your underwriting guidelines. So if you're going to lose a lender, or if you don't have 150% LTV and you need 150% LTV, well, first of all, I don't think you're going to find it. Second of all, you're going to need to look really hard. So you always need to be looking at other, lending sources. But this next year, you're going to lose more than you're going to get. You will lose some lending sources, whether it be credit unions not buying because they don't have liquidity, whether it is subprime finance companies that now their cost of funds has gone up so much they cannot continue because you've already hit your state cap, so you can't go any higher than that. Or it's just, the increased cost of everything. But keep that in mind with the fact that always run your DTI, your debt to income, because your debt to income is going to determine your payment, and your payment is going to determine the amount financed based on the term. So if you know what your debt to income is, you can back into that. But if you don't, and that's one of the first things lenders will change. They'll go from 20 to 18, or 22 to 20, or 18 to 15, because they're trying to get a better, less riskier loan. And right now, everybody is looking for less risk because there's more cost.
So this to me says a couple things. Understanding your lenders, understand how they buy. And if you don't, and you are expecting to finance, it's not a cash business, right? It's not a cash business. You're financing customers.
Right. You got to have finance. I'm sorry.
So if in the event you expect to sell more cars, or at least stay as competitive or close to being as competitive as where you were before, the bottom line is understanding your lenders, and then there requires sales training, presentation, asking for more money down. One of the things, Stephen Apicella, hey, Stephen, I'm so glad you're on tonight. I was kind of wondering where you went off to. He is busy. This man is all over the world. He travels far and wide. But he says a poorly followed process is a process.
Yes, it is.
It is.
That habit is still a habit.
It's still, if it still sucks, it sucks. Sorry, guys, but I said the word sucks. There is so much to gain by partnering with experienced coaches like Rebecca, Lisa, I will say as well, that can help establish and propel a proven process. I will say that I really have helped dealers, and I know you have as well, really think through that process. What does that mean, and how to get impact from that? Because the more consistent that we are, let's face it, the more confident that we become. But we have to make sense of it. We have to understand what we're doing, why we do what we do. That's one of the things that I do in my workshops, is really get these guys to understand why do we do what we do, and how important that is, and how to align from the time that customer hits on that dealership website to what takes place with that BDC. From BDC, what's that communication with the desk and sales, and how that deal makes its way into that F&I office. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Employees, customers, and dealers, and profitability benefits when we do. Yay. Absolutely. So again, I want to thank you so much, Lisa. Always good stuff.
No problem.
You are the best. I so love when you're on the show with me. And boy, it's been a while since our last time together when we were on the F&I Today show.
I know. It's been a while. We'll have to make a regular thing of this.
We definitely got to start making a regular thing of this. You are fantastic, fabulous. Guys, I want to thank you again. Oh, by the way, tonight, you're going to see me at 8 p.m. I'm going to be on with Ted Ings, Fixed Ops Roundtable. Take 2. Nice. So hopefully, Lisa, you can come on and join us as well. So guys, hopefully you can jump on there real quick, and we have a great conversation tonight at 8 p.m. Fixed Ops Roundtable with Ted Ings. So with that, thank you again, Miss Lisa.
Thanks, Beck.
It's been fun. Thank you.